There's a video circulating right now that you need to see to understand the scale of what just happened. It was recorded by a security camera mounted on a building at the Gairong border crossing between Nepal and Tibet. The footage shows a normal Wednesday morning. Workers moving between buildings, vehicles parked in rows, people walking at a relaxed pace across what appears to be a busy commercial port. And then, from the upper left of the frame, a wall appears. It is not water in any way you would normally recognize water. It is a churning mass of brown and gray, carrying boulders the size of cars, entire trees still upright, chunks of road surface, and pieces of buildings ripped from somewhere upstream. It rises above the roof line of the structures and frame. Within 4 seconds, every person, every vehicle, every building visible a moment earlier is gone, buried, swept, erased. That footage was captured at approximately 8:40 local time on August 26, 2026. And what it shows is not the beginning of this disaster. By the time that wall of debris reached the Gairong border crossing, it had already torn through dozens of settlements upstream. It had already killed. It had already buried people alive. And it still had more than 100 kilometers of valley left to destroy. As of tonight, 160 people are confirmed dead across Nepal and Tibet. More than 1,400 are missing. And verified footage from at least 7 separate locations along the flood path shows the same thing. A massive, fast-moving wall of material consuming everything it touches. Let me describe what the other verified footage shows, because the Gairong security camera is only one piece of this. The British Broadcasting Corporation verified a video filmed in Trishuli Bazaar, a town in Nuwakot district, approximately 25 kilometers northwest of Kathmandu. The footage begins with the Trishuli River already swollen to several times its normal width, churning brown and moving at extraordinary speed. About 40 seconds into the clip, the pressure of the floodwater lifts an entire concrete bridge off its supports and carries it downstream as if it were made of cardboard. A few seconds after that, multi-story buildings along the riverbank simply fold and collapse into the current. Trees that had stood for decades are ripped from the earth. The entire visible landscape transforms in under 2 minutes. A second verified video from the same location, filmed moments later, shows the aftermath. Where buildings stood minutes earlier, there is only brown water and debris. The river has risen so high that structures on what appeared to be safely elevated ground are now partially submerged. The town has been fundamentally reshaped. A third piece of footage, filmed from inside a bus on a road that follows the Trishuli River, shows passengers screaming as the river beside them suddenly swells and begins overflowing its banks at alarming speed. People on foot, on motorcycles, and in vehicles can be seen frantically trying to move to higher ground. The water closes the gap between the river and the road with shocking speed. The bus continues driving, passengers crying out as the valley below them fills. And there is one more video that researchers are studying carefully. It shows a group of people standing on a hillside in the upper Bhote Koshi Valley, watching what they initially appear to believe is a distant avalanche. They are filming calmly. Some are pointing. Then the scale becomes apparent. What looked like a snowslide is actually an enormous mass of ice, rock, and debris cascading down the mountainside toward the river thousands of feet below. It is moving far faster than it appears at that distance. The people watching begin to back away, then turn and run. Scientists believe this footage may capture the initial glacier collapse that triggered the entire downstream catastrophe. What you're watching in these videos is not a flood in the traditional sense. Dave Petley, a landslide researcher who writes the landslide blog for the American Geophysical Union, described the event as a catastrophic debris flow. He wrote that at this scale, the event is close to apocalyptic. He noted that the root cause is already known from satellite imagery. The collapse of a glacier high in the mountains sent an enormous volume of material into the Lende Kola River Valley, which then propagated downstream through the Bhote Koshi and into the Trishuli. Dr. Fatima Pilosu, a hydrometeorologist at the University of Reading, explained why debris flows are so much more destructive than water floods. She said a flood thick with mud and rock can be even more lethal than a rain-fed flash flood. Both can strike with great force and speed and carry boulders and debris along, but fast-flowing water loaded with sediment picks up everything in its way and carries it downstream. Mud buries people. The moving mass is much heavier than water, and it grows heavier as it travels, scouring soil, gravel, and boulders from the riverbed and banks. When the flow stops, the mud and rocks settle into a dense mass that is hard to dig through, making rescue even slower and more difficult. This explains something visible in the aerial footage from helicopters flying over Rasuwa district. Where villages once stood, there are no ruins in the way you would expect after a flood. There are no collapsed buildings protruding from water. Instead, there are flat fields of gray sediment, sometimes meters thick, with no indication that human habitation ever existed in those locations. The structures were not merely damaged. They were buried entirely. Nepal's Home Ministry confirmed that at least 19 bridges along the flood path were destroyed. The Materi Bridge linking Nepal and China, the Rasuwa border crossing, and approximately 40 kilometers of paved highway have been wiped out completely. 13 hydropower projects with a combined capacity of 105 megawatts have been forced to shut down, with at least 2 fully destroyed. According to Renewable Energy World, floods and landslides have damaged 18 hydropower plants across the affected region, reducing national hydropower production by an estimated 1,100 megawatts. The settlements of Timure and Siapur Basi in Rasuwa district, which served as the primary gateway communities for overland travel between Nepal and China, have sustained catastrophic damage. Nepal's Ministry of Home Affairs warned that the loss of life in these 2 towns is expected to be huge. Both set in narrow portions of the valley where the river is funneled between steep walls, meaning the flood wave would have been compressed and accelerated as it passed through. Downstream, the damage extends through Nuwakot, Dading, and into Gorkha and Chitwan districts as the Trishuli carried the floodwater south. The Nepal Army has confirmed rescue operations are underway in the village of Mailung, where 115 people remain stranded and cut off from road access. In Trishuli Bazaar itself, buildings near the riverbank have either disappeared entirely or are caked in dense layers of sediment from the force of the passage. The footage from Trishuli Bazaar is particularly disturbing because this is not a remote village. It is a regional hub located just 25 kilometers from Kathmandu. The verified BBC footage shows urban infrastructure, concrete buildings several stories tall, paved roads, a modern bridge, and the flood consumed all of it in seconds. If that level of destruction is possible in a semi-urban area relatively close to the capital, the damage in the smaller, more remote settlements upstream, where there are no cameras and no communications, is likely far worse. Yi Liang, a Chinese businessman based in Kathmandu who operates a logistics company with 7 container trucks stationed in the border area, told the BBC that he has lost contact with all of his Nepali employees. He said there is no signal, so they cannot reach anyone. He confirmed that, as far as he knows, there was no warning. There were occasional mudslides and landslides in the rainy season, he said, but this one seems much more serious. A 68-year-old survivor named Keshav Prasad Baral told Reuters from a hospital bed that when the mud reached his home, he tried to grab his wife's hand and pull her to the terrace, but she was swept away. He was rescued by helicopter 4 or 5 hours later. His wife, he said, is still somewhere beneath the mud. A health worker in Rasuwa named Tula Bahadur told reporters there is devastation everywhere we look. The settlements next to the river have been completely swept away. 5 of his own relatives are missing. Nepal police are recording the names of missing persons by mobile phone flashlight outside a Nepal Army training center because the entire affected region has lost electrical power. Helicopters have been deployed but cannot land in the most devastated areas of Siapur Basi and Timure because the river is still flowing far above its normal course. Chinese military drones have been sent to assess damage on the Tibetan side, where state media reports 3 dead and 265 missing. The total missing persons list now exceeds 1,400. Of those, 466 are foreign nationals from 28 countries, including 54 Americans, 33 British citizens, 133 Indians, 34 Australians, and 24 Canadians. The British missing include a 13-year-old girl, according to The Guardian. 8 South Korean nationals working on a hydropower construction project are also unaccounted for. 26 Nepali police officers, 9 armed police, and 44 military personnel are among the missing. Alpine Ecotrek, a Nepali expedition company, confirmed that 12 British nationals on a guided tour across the Nepal-Tibet border are missing, along with 2 Irish nationals and 4 South Africans, who were part of the same group. India has issued flood alerts for the downstream states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and has begun evacuating thousands of people from 6 districts. The Trishuli River feeds into the Narayani, which crosses into India as the Gandak River. The floodwater, still carrying sediment and debris, will reach Indian territory within hours if it has not already. Dave Petley concluded his analysis with a statement that cuts to the heart of this disaster. He wrote that this event is going to have profound implications for Nepal. The loss of many people, including a large number of tourists as well as local people, will be extremely painful. The Gairong border crossing has clearly been destroyed along with its infrastructure. Houses have been lost, and at least 2 hydroelectric schemes destroyed. The true scale of the loss, he wrote, is not yet clear. He then added something that anyone watching this footage should understand. We systematically underestimate the risk associated with these events in the Himalaya mountains. Investments in large-scale hydropower projects are repeatedly being destroyed by catastrophic debris flows. Under the conditions that result from climate change, many more of these events will occur in the future. The footage you have seen today is not from a movie. It is not a simulation. It is what happens when a glacier collapses without warning into a river valley at 3 in the morning and sends a wall of ice, mud, rock, and water through communities where people are sleeping, eating breakfast, and beginning their day. It is what happens when there is no siren, no alert, no time. And tonight, across 28 countries on 5 continents, Families are watching these same videos, searching for faces they recognize, hoping that the people they love somehow found higher ground in time.